What's up guys, Overman here, and in today's video, we're going to take a look at the exotic scout rifle Mida multi-tool. I just picked this one up from Xur, and I'm really excited because I've been waiting for this one for a while. Alright, so jumping into the first tree, we've got soft ballistics. This is probably the one you want to go with if you want to maximize the range on Mida multi-tool. The next upgrade is CQB ballistics. It's going to give you the slightest bit of impact, a little bit less range, and more stability. Smart drift control is more of the same, a little bit less range, a little bit more stability. Personally, I go with smart drift control for PvP, and I stick with soft ballistics for PvE. Now, the first bonus that you'll unlock with Mida multi-tool is Third Eye, and this is going to make the radar stay active while aiming down sights. This is a great perk to have on a scout rifle in PvP. It's awesome because you can aim down sights, be shooting guys downrange, and you can be aware of your surroundings, and that'll make it really hard for people to sneak up on you. And it can also be useful in PvE for the same reasons. When you're fighting Hive and you're shooting acolytes and wizards and whatnot, you don't want those cursed thralls sneaking up on you. And you can't tell me that shit hasn't happened to you while fighting Omnigul. Now moving on to the middle tree, the first perk we have is Lightweight. When held, this weapon grants +2 character agility. This meshes really well with Mida multi-tool for reasons we'll see later. The next upgrade is Quick Draw. This weapon can be drawn unbelievably fast. This one is not so great, honestly. This weapon can already be drawn pretty fast, and Quick Draw doesn't make too much of a difference, so I'd pass on this one because the other two are much more useful. And the next one is Field Scout. This one is going to bump up your magazine size from 21 to 27, so 6 extra shots, which in PvE is nice, but in PvP I feel like that's just not too great. Considering Mida multi-tool has an insane reload speed already, you're not going to benefit too much from having those 6 extra bullets in the mag. But I wouldn't blame you for going with Field Scout because the bonuses in the middle tree don't add too much to Mida multi-tool. And speaking of Mida multi-tool, that's the name of the final bonus. This weapon boosts movement speed and fires on a hair trigger. Now I'm sure you know what the first part of that means. This is pretty much like another lightweight perk. It's gonna increase your agility. The second part about firing on a hair trigger means that you won't have to pull your trigger all the way down. What does this mean? You can kind of just tap the trigger a little bit and the gun will still fire. You don't have to pull the trigger all the way down. This isn't too big of a deal and some people don't notice this at all, but it can be a nice quality of life feature. I'm sure if you're using Mida multi-tool a lot, your trigger finger is probably going to thank you for this perk. That being said though, if you use the R1 button to shoot on PlayStation, the hair trigger perk is worthless. So now let's take a look at the stats on this gun. Mida multi-tool has a rare damage model. It's not the only one with this damage model, but it's very rare. If we compare it to Fang of Air Ute, you can see that the rate of fire is a little bit higher, but the impact is a little bit lower. You'll also see that the range is significantly lower on Mida multi-tool, but the reload speed is a lot greater on the Mida multi-tool as well. And the Mida really is all about speed. Now, I'm going to spoil this review by saying that Mida multi-tool is the goodest weapon in the game in my opinion, and I promise you'll understand what that means by the end of the video. Alright, let's talk about this thing in PvE. Honestly, you probably don't want to use this. The bonuses on Mida multi-tool really aren't geared towards PvE, and I could say the same about the stats. In PvE, you really don't need the higher rate of fire, and the lower impact honestly isn't too great. I much prefer the damage model of guns like Fang of Air Ute and the Saturnine Rapier. And speaking of the Rapier, when I was first using the Rapier, everyone would ask me what gun I was using when I was playing in PvE because I was just wrecking face with Firefly and Outlaw. You will probably never have anyone ask you what weapon you're using while you're using Mida multi-tool. No one will care because it's not going to be causing insane amounts of damage like the Saturnine Rapier. And that's kind of a bad thing because the Rapier is a legendary weapon and Mida is an exotic weapon. Mida multi-tool is very bland, and right now in Destiny, there's a ton of really good scout rifles out there. If you played Iron Banner a couple months ago, you probably picked up a Gellen's Demise, which had Firefly and Outlaw. The Saturnine Rapier, which you can buy with Crucible marks, has the same perks as well. And the Fang of Air Ute, which you can get from the Crota's End raid, has arc damage and Hive Disruptor. So Mida multi-tool really just doesn't fit in with the current meta of scout rifles. The scout rifles right now in the game are really freaking powerful and probably the best weapons to be using in PvE. Though there is one situation in which people will ask you what weapon you're using, and that's in the Crota's End raid. In the Abyss section of the raid, you can move really freaking fast thanks to lightweight and the Mida multi-tool perk. But honestly, after you're done with the Abyss section, I would recommend switching out the Mida multi-tool. I really don't think that this weapon is worth your exotic spot. It is a scout rifle, so it is good by default, but so is every other scout rifle in the game. But just to give you a general idea of the damage you'll be doing, you'll probably kill tier 1 enemies in 1 to 2 headshots, and you can also take down enemies with red bars and shields pretty quickly. The Mida multi-tool can handle a wizard that has a red bar for health, but it cannot handle enemies that have yellow bars. For enemies that have yellow bars, you definitely want to pull out your sniper rifle, shoddy, fusion rifle, whatever, because Mida is going to take way too long to kill one of those things, especially if they have a shield. Alright, so let's talk about this thing in PvP. In PvP, I think Mida multi-tool really starts to shine, because all those little things start coming together and make this a really enjoyable gun to use. Like I said before, Third Eye is an excellent PvP perk. It's one of the best perks you can have for PvP, and when you combine lightweight and the Mida multi-tool perk with Radiant Dance Machines on a hunter, you can move so freaking fast. You can outstrafe a lot of your opponents really easily, and you're gonna make it really hard for them to hit you. This is especially true when you're fighting snipers at long range. Generally with a scout rifle, you're gonna have to be really quick and really good and get pretty lucky to fight somebody with a sniper rifle at long range. But not with Mida. You can shmurda dance on snipers all day with this setup. It's gonna be really hard for them to hit you, and you're just gonna be seeing bullets whizzing by you as you pop them in the face. And speaking of popping people in the face, with Mida multi-tool, you'll be doing 52 damage to the head and 35 damage to the body. So that means you can kill with 4 shots to the face and 6 shots to the balls. So Mida multi-tool can kill pretty darn quickly in PvP, especially when you're strafing around really quickly. And I know I mentioned the Radiant Dance Machines on the Hunter before, but I tried this out on my Titan and my Warlock, and this works pretty darn well. You can get really fast with these other classes, and it's still gonna be hard for people with different scout rifles and sniper rifles to hit you, because you can move so damn fast. And speaking of speed, Mida multi-tool's fire rate is really freaking nice. Like I said before, it's a little bit higher than the Fang of Eriyut's rate of fire, so it's a little bit more forgiving, and this is pretty much the perfect fire rate for me personally for a scout rifle in the Crucible. I had bought Beeline Trauma a while ago, and I really didn't like it. The fire rate was really nice, but I found that the impact was just too damn low. It felt a lot like my Vanquisher, and my Vanquisher was easier to use because I could just hold down the trigger. With Mida multi-tool, I feel like it's definitely worth using this one over the Beeline Trauma because it actually has decent impact. You can still kill relatively quickly and maintain that ranged advantage of a normal scout rifle, but it's a little bit easier and more forgiving to use than something like Fang of Eriyut or the Saturine Rapier. Also, the reload speed is really freaking nice, making it so that you don't feel like you need to go with Field Scout so much. The magazine size is already good, so you can just shoot off 20 bullets, reload in 2 seconds, and then have another 21 bullets to go. Also, the ADS time on the Mida multi-tool is noticeably quicker than the ADS time on something like Beeline Trauma. It's very fast, and while this isn't Call of Duty, so that's not going to win you too many gunfights, it's definitely nice to be able to just scope in really quickly and start shooting at people. Now, let's talk about the bad about this weapon. The one major downside to Mida multi-tool is probably the scope. I didn't complain about this when I was talking about it in PvE because this is the scope that I like to use in PvE, and that's one of the problems actually with this scope. This is an exotic weapon, but this scope can be found on other scout rifles. Namely, my Saturine Rapier has the same scope. I don't understand why an exotic weapon has such a boring and mundane scope. I would really like to see something more exotic and more unique on this weapon because it is an exotic weapon after all. But then the other problem is that it's a scope. Generally, I like to run with red dots in the Crucible because I find that the scopes zoom me in just too much and it makes close range engagements kind of awkward, and that kind of sucks on Mida multi-tool because this has a higher rate of fire than most scout rifles, and it's hard to take advantage of that in close range with this scope, so that's kind of weird. I really wish I had an option for a red dot or something like that. And I know that on exotic weapons you can't change the sights, but I wish I had some option for the Mida multi-tool because this sight really doesn't allow me to rape face like I want to in close range engagements. Overall though, I think Mida multi-tool is a solid PvP weapon. So back to what I said before about Mida multi-tool being the goodest weapon in the game. What I meant by that was this is probably as good as a weapon can get without becoming great. This is certainly by no means a bad weapon. I would never use this weapon and think, oh man, this thing sucks. It's actually good. It's pretty good, but it's not great. I don't think that this thing can compete with other scout rifles like the Saturine Rapier and the Fang of Eriyut in PvE, and those weapons happen to be legendary, so you can use your exotic slot on something else much more powerful. And like I said before, this thing is nothing special in PvE. It's not going to give you any advantage over any other scout rifle aside from the first section of the Crota's End raid. In PvP, Mida multi-tool offers a few bonuses touches that make the weapon very enjoyable to use. It's not something as game-changing as Hawkmoon's 3 bonus damage rounds, or Thorn's dot damage, or the Last Word's insane fire rates, or Red Death's health regeneration and damage. It doesn't have any of that, and I don't think that this is a top 5 exotic weapons for PvP, but I think it's top 10. It's definitely really fun to use, and I don't mind using this one. Personally, this is my favorite scout rifle to use in the Crucible right now. I really like the rate of fire and impact. This damage model is what I want for the Crucible. And Mida Multi-Tool has really made me want to try out the other scout rifle that has this same damage model, which is the Crypt Dweller that's available from the Dead Orbit faction. So I'm probably going to grind for that and try to compare these two. But for right now, I think Mida Multi-Tool is an excellent weapon. So if you got spare coins, I definitely suggest picking this one up from Xur if he's still around. And if he sells it in the future, I highly recommend buying this one. That's it for this review. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to drop a like. And if you're not feeling too shy, drop a comment below and let me know what you think about Mida Multi-Tool. And also, what's your favorite scout rifle to use in PvP? This one is definitely mine. And don't forget to subscribe for more videos like this in the future. And follow me on Twitter for some updates on future videos. That's it for me. Overman out.